a lot of people are saying that rap music has this particularly poignantly bad impact on black people. And then hardcore death metal can do this kind of thing, and we don't draw that same parallel with white people. That's where I have the issue.
We're not responsible for white school shooters. We don't raise them. We don't raise little white like anorexic girls who like cut themselves. Those aren't in our households.
It's a red flag.
Because I had the whole Rick James outfit fully like fleshed out. I had sketched out what it was going to be, how I was going to do the hair, blah blah blah. And then I started listening to like the soundtrack of like his music so I could get into the vibe. You know, yeah, exactly. She's a very kinky girl and all that kind of stuff. And then I was listening, and then I remembered that episode that you and me did, Josh, talking about how "Give It to Me, Baby" is a fucking rape anthem. And then I was listening to the song, and I was like, "When I got home last night, you wouldn't make love to me." Hold on, what you mean, girl? You were fast asleep. Come on, girl. Give it to me, baby. What the fuck? And I said, and I was like, nah, this. Oh, and then I was remembering that, and I was like, okay, but maybe I'm overly harshly interpreting the song. Maybe I'm eddying up my interpretation of it. Maybe this is just, it's some weekend shit. It's a character, whatever. So I was like, but something I was going through his Wikipedia page because I was like, yeah, nigga had a couple of weird cases. So I was like, nope, can't dress up as that for Halloween. So then I was like, all right, well, who's adjacent? How can we, how we get? How can I use the rest of these clothes that I done already fucking bought? Because I already got the red cowboy boots, so I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do with these?
This nigga Eddie said, oh, the answer was under my nose the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
I like how you did that. You know what I'm saying? Just like under my nose. Just under my nose the whole time.
That's what it's for. Yeah. You already know.
Trying to tell you, man, get some baby powder real quick, bro.
Yeah, okay. I mean, shit. It's maybe I get the real thing. Who knows? You know what I mean? People never know.
You ain't ready for that life. My daddy taught me a long time ago that ain't what you want.
See, but I don't have an addictive personality, like at all.
That's what you think. That's what niggas. Hey, look.
I feel like that's what
niggas was saying before. That's what niggas was saying before they tried crack for the first time. That's all I'm saying.
Nah, I feel like niggas that tried crack was addicted to other shit before they were addicted to crack. I don't think niggas started with crack.
Nah, niggas did in the 80s, bro. Niggas started.
They started with crack. Well, that's true. Well, no, but okay. First of all, we got to give these niggas from the 80s a little bit of grace here, because niggas in the 80s didn't know that crack was crack. They didn't know. They were just like, hey,
they just thought it was some new shit.
There's some new shit. It's cocaine, baby. Yeah. It's a little bit of ice. It's a little bit of reefer, baby.
And how are you disproving?
It's cocaine, but cheaper. Oh my god, this is the best.
No, because cocaine been around. People have been doing cocaine for ages.
And cocaine was, and that was when the cocaine was pure, baby. So how are you disproving my point? If crack was on a whole other level, I'm like, oh nah, nigga, crack wasn't. Crack wasn't a thing.
Fun fact: cocaine has never been pure. Like it has gotten pure.
I'm telling you,
the price has not moved. I was joking.
There's never a better time to start cocaine than right now.
Literally, I was joking, and I was like, they got to compete with meth somehow because meth is cheap as fuck. It was like they got to be like the organic stimulant.
Yeah. Okay, this is healthy.
Yeah, this is pure. This is
from
the
earth. Griselda over here. That's what I'm talking about. AB.
Okay.
Let's bring it back.
Welcome everybody to Waving the Red Flag. It's Griselda's favorite costume Halloween podcast. It's your boy Eddie. It's Josh. It's what's the character's name, dog?
Alvin? I don't know that.
Oh wait, fuck! Did I say Josh? I meant to say Alvin and then Josh.
You really didn't do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you said me.
I fucked it up.
Then, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna keep
do
it.
Do it over.
I'll do it over. Anyway, welcome everybody.
Well, that coke got him, boy.
It's Mickey Freeze. It's Mickey Freeze favorite drug dealing podcast. It's your boy Eddie. It's Alvin, and it's Josh in the likeness of Tanjiro. You know what I'm saying? Let's get into some spooky shit. You know what I mean? Did y'all see that article about old girl that got cooked inside of a oven in Walmart?
How the fuck you get cooked inside?
It's like a walk-in oven.
Why they got a walk-in oven in Walmart?
That's a good question. But the reason is
answer your question. I didn't. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I mean, we already know. Yeah, I didn't read it either. I saw the headline. You know what I mean? But I put references so that Alvin could read it, and then we know. It's basically
somebody gonna fact check this shit.
So I'm just gonna say what I think happened, and he'll be like, "Well, actually, according to my references,
she took the oven home and walked into it.
Actually, this is not funny.
Like a real Jack, it was like a portal to Jack and Jill. You know what I'm saying? Like, she saw the evil witch,
like a evil witch of the West kind of cookie situation.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's Hansel and Gretel.
Oh yeah, you're. What was Jack and Jill? That was the.
They ran up a hill. There's catching a pail of water.
Yeah.
Then Jack fell down. He broke his crown. You know.
My God. Yeah, we really need 3 niggas to make a well-rounded pod.
Definitely, because I knew what you meant. You didn't say it, but I knew you meant Hansel and Gretel, and so I started responding to it.
I know niggas out there like heard that shit like, hell yeah, I know this.
Jack and Jill, the bitch with the breadcrumbs and shit, right?
Yeah, the bitch with breadcrumbs in the oven and shit, yeah. The gingerbread house.
Yeah, exactly.
Big bad wolf and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Buffy blowing the house down.
Little Miss Muffet, she was sitting on a tuffet. It was all, you know what I'm saying? Eddie Murphy was a donkey. Everybody was there.
It was a nigga with a red hood that was really a wolf coming to find out.
Yeah. It was me. It was Eddie. Rick James was in the club. It was crazy. You know what I mean? But the reason she was in this oven was it's a walk-in oven for them to like do large batches of like, I don't know, roast chicken or like rolls or some shit like that. So it's like it's not meant for you to walk into, but it's got large, like you put in a trolley of baked goods, for instance, and you roll the whole trolley in so you can turn the whole thing on. And
like
she was in there. Say again.
It's like a stale cracker joint. Like if you're familiar with like the YouTuber.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
For the listeners at home.
My fault. Apologies for disrupting your story.
No, it's all conversation. There are no disruptions. You know what I'm saying? There's just more words, and that's what we do here.
I'ma leave the door open, girl. I'ma bust it wide open. Sorry.
Nah, it's good. It's good.
That you're feeling like I'm feeling that you're wanting some penis tonight, baby. Tell me that you're coming soon. I'm done.
Nah, it's all right. Look in the edit. Can we get some ADR on that to just sync it a little bit better, auto tune it? You know what I mean? Just make it look natural. You know.
Yeah,
Leave that part in as well because that makes it funny.
But yeah, something like that. And the idea is she got locked in and cooked to death. And she was like a young woman. She was like 19, and her mom also worked at this same. It was in Canada. It was like Nova Scotia or something like that. Her mom worked at the same store. So she was like her mother was like calling her because she was like, oh, we need to leave the store or whatever. And she didn't answer for like an hour. And her mom was like, immediately, that something's off because my daughter doesn't leave her phone off like that. We communicate during the day. And so they were looking all over for her and they found her cooked in the oven, which would have been just.
Would have been?
What you mean?
Would have, like they found her cooked
Oh, I guess I'm using. I was
like, it happened, didn't it?
I guess I'm using like the subjunctive case because I'm not that woman, so I'm saying like her experience would have been, meaning like I'm talking about something that I can't know, I suppose. But I mean, I guess you're right. I don't know that because was sounds wrong. Would have sounds like the word that you use in that situation where you're talking about somebody else's feelings in the past tense.
I feel the opposite way, but we don't get into that. But
that ain't interesting. Just cut that whole shit out. We don't need it. This ain't the goddamn.
Or just keep it in because it's funny.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like that's pretty legit.
We ain't hooked on phonics over here.
Give the people the bang for their views. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay. Give them the nuck for their buck. Sure.
There you go, my nigga. I love it.
Yes. I know, motherfuckers is podcasting.
Eddie, what did you do when you came in the club? I just got a question.
He was shaking his dreads and busting them heads.
Goddamn, throwing these foes and busting these heads. Best to back up for I ain't gonna lie. I like mumble my way through like a lot of that verse, but I still turn the fuck up like one of the bad bitches that it was meant for.
I really don't know none of the lyrics, honestly. I just know that part.
Nah, shit. I knew the shit. Bar for bar, word for word. I come in the club, shaking my dreads.
Because you low key scared me. You caught me in the Candace Owens moments because I was like, nigga,
Oh,
I don't know. I just know that part of the song. I don't know what the fuck the shit starts
I
as.
just know nothing.
This nigga Eddie was like, I just started doing this, and it just carried me the whole way. Like,
Yeah.
fucking 15 years of just doing this shit.
Right.
And people were like, yeah, I didn't need to go back and do the full research.
One of us.
Jesus. No, I was definitely in the corner during those middle school dances. Let me see.
But her in the oven, I feel like a oven that size would have to have some level of fail safes. For example, walk-in freezers have fail safes.
That's what everybody was talking about. And apparently, and because I think this is because one, it's not meant to be walked in like a walk-in freezer. So it's like you can fit into it, but it's not. It's part of its normal use does not involve walking into it. It's kind of like it's like an elevator shaft. You know what I mean? Where it's like if an elevator is not there and you walk in and the door closes, this is not meant to be an area for a human to even be in. So there might not be fail safes there. But in an elevator, there's lots of fail safes to keep a person from getting crushed if they're outside.
Even in the shafts, yeah.
But can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If you got a human-sized oven,
human go in there.
But why the fuck would it not be able to open from the inside?
Man, design is a dangerous game. Fridges didn't even used to have a fucking way to get out of them bitches. Fridges used to lock from the inside and they killed a bunch of babies. And then they were like, yo, we got to make fridges different. Why did no one ever think of this? Because kids were getting trapped in a fridge and just starving to death. And it's like, oh, it's your baby for dinner when you come home.
That's the craziest place to starve. If I ain't gonna hold you, fam. That's if you could starve anywhere, why the fuck would it be inside the refrigerator?
Just eat the food, you idiot. Oh shit.
This nigga Eddie's talking about the shit all wrong, man. It was like babies dying from like temperatures and shit. Not the fact that they starved when it was a fucking like meal next to them, my nigga. Like it was fucking cold cuts right there.
It's a whole ham. I'm so hungry. It's been days.
Dinosaur ham in that bitch.
It's fucking water in there. It's fucking whole hams and shit. Fucking sides, fucking fruits, vegetables, and shit in the crisper.
Anything you can want is in
the whole pyramid. Yeah. But I mean, but if we're being actual, that's not it. Neither of us is. Alvin's not right either. Like what was happening is that they were.
I'm guessing, my nigga.
Yeah, what was actually happening is that they were throwing these fridges away, so they weren't plugged in, they weren't heated or anything, and kids would like jump in them because they were in a landfill or whatever, hiding in them. So then they would starve or go thirsty to death over time. But it wasn't the fridge wasn't on, it wasn't nothing in it, so it didn't take them but a few days to die real quick. So still a very ironic way to go. Very macabre. Very macabre.
This nigga knew the context and just held that from us. You see, that's what I'm talking about. This breadcrumb and knowledge type shit. You know what I'm saying?
Damn, you're right. Sourdough type shit.
You know what I'm saying? The first taste is free, but then he get you hooked, and then he just like keep you coming back to the pod.
I'm your pusher man, baby.
100%.
It's me. I'm your friend through thick and thin, baby.
I'm your brother. I'm your friend. I'm that cocaine on the end. I'm your pusher. I got weed. I got girls. I got bitches in the world.
Is that true? Is that okay? Is that an actual lyric? You just made that's good then, because that sounded like it could go in there. Yeah, that was good.
I thank you. I wasn't sure about it, but I'm glad
you should be a songwriter. Yeah, no, I definitely I would approve if I were a singer, I would sing it 100%. Okay. 100%.
You not a singer? I thought you dropped like Treasure and shit.
Hey,
right?
I sing. I'm not a singer though. I sing, but I'm not a singer, baby.
But you do like 24 karat magic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
in the air. You know what I mean? Yeah, of course.
Weren't you on that song with like B.O.B.?
Oh, he was.
Oh
my god,
I'm trying to.
That's my favorite Bob.
I know.
It's him.
That's the best Bob. No, I like Anderson .Paak's Bob. That's my favorite Bob.
You and your Silk Sonic vibe. This bitch got me paranoid. Diamonds on our wrist, and now I'm here all alone. 'Cause I'ma leave the door open. I'ma bust it wide open. I'ma bust it wide open.
You just make it up. That's not the lyric, is it? You got me singing bullshit. At least we won't get sued. You know what I mean? I won't get a cease and desist. Well, if we're sticking with horror, I don't know much about this situation, but Lil Durk apparently is has caught a charge with regard to hit job. Is that of interest?
Yeah.
Or is there anything else
It
on here?
was what was it? Quando Rondo's cousin.
Okay,
Bro,
yeah,
this shit was fucking hilarious.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Okay, I ain't gonna hold you. I thought Quando Rondo been dead. I ain't gonna hold you.
Wait, is he
Like,
now?
I did not know this nigga was still kicking and breathing. Like, thankfully, shout out to the YNs.
Wait, did they get him or they didn't get him?
To the Whites.
They didn't.
They didn't get him. So he's still alive. Okay.
No, unfortunately, they killed his cousin instead of him by mistake.
That's awful.
This nigga said, fortunately.
No, he said,
I said unfortunately. I said unfortunately.
That's also worse. That's also worse.
It was silent.
This nigga said, unfortunately, they didn't kill Quando.
This is not funny, man. These are real people's lives,
dog.
dog.
No. Okay,
somebody really died.
Everybody knows what I meant. It was unfortunate. Well, I guess it's unfortunate all around. But we also got to we also got to give like a real context to the state of our culture and the state of being that we are in. That it's like, like it's ops and this nigga's doing dirt on both sides. Not to say that killing anybody is right, but look, that's just why in certain instances, hey, minding my own business. I'm not about to get into a war in Iraq. Documentary.
At some point, somebody, I think with a lot of these beefs, somebody has to be the one to stop it, right? Because this was basically related to the King Von shit. So like, I feel like at some point, somebody has to be the person to stop it, dude. But just from a larger perspective, I think that, so one, I agree with most of the internet that I think it's hilarious that the tactics that fucking Durk was using are very much like, I watched the episode of fucking like NCIS, like that was fucking hilarious. He was like, I'm gonna book 4 different plane tickets. The feds will not know
what
plane I'm trying to get to.
Some acne shit.
Yeah, it was literally some fucking and then also like going to countries that were all very much involved in extradition treaties with the United States. But I also think that it's hilarious to me that people don't understand that even if you go to a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty, they will likely still play ball with the United States. Like that's not some kind of ironclad kind of thing. Like look at,
they'll agree on a case by case basis.
Exactly. And it may buy you time in the cases
which could be vital.
Which could be vital. Look at like the WikiLeaks guy or like or Snowden. It bought them time.
Well, that's if it's a diplomatic where they give you what's it called, asylum specifically, which I don't know that.
But even with Snowden, like Snowden went to Moscow and like it was very much like they were held up in Moscow like airports specifically while they worked this out from that perspective. So these non-extradition treaty like countries will 100% still on a case by case ad hoc basis still play ball with the United States because the United States is the United States. Like let's be honest. But all that being said, Durk was 100% moving like a power character.
Yeah,
and that shit was fucking hilarious.
Wait, so with the airplanes, because I really only I saw one tweet and was like, fuck it, I guess this is a topic in the culture. But he was fleeing. Is that why he was booked?
He was trying to flee. He was trying to flee, and he like
booked multiple tickets. Thinking that they would be
tickets.
On some Catch Me If You Can Frank Abagnale shit. They're not gonna know where he is. Okay.
And he like booked like commercial flight like planes. Like I think one of them was to like Switzerland or some shit. One of them, but he had a private plane booked to go to Italy.
And that's the one he was on?
That's the one that he was supposed to be on. They called him before he got on the shit apparently.
Yeah, that's super stupid. He should have been on one of the ones that was. I feel like if you're going to do that plan, you should be on the one they least expect. Or actually, I guess somewhere in the middle, because the one they least expect, that's the one that you would think if you were smart. So they're probably
I would have been on a boat to Cuba. Like, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like,
how do you even get that though?
He the one that's tapped in. Like shit, he figured it out.
Yeah, right.
I feel like this is something you would know. For some reason, I feel like
I'm not trying to give away trade secrets. I'm not trying to let motherfuckers know what I'm going to do.
I'll ask you off air. I'm trying to get my go bag situated.
Crazy thing is, one, he had predicted in his lyrics. I mean, you live in that fucking life and shit. Oh, I'm gonna get locked up by the feds, and that was in the lyric.
Yep.
It's like we're gonna be in such and such years. Oh, I'm gonna be in I'm gonna be locked up by the feds or some bullshit. And then it's like you get the key to the city in the
That shit
same
was
week
crazy. That shit
in
was
which you
crazy
get
with the
Yeah.
timing.
Record time fucking having to return that library book. It was crazy.
Look,
I don't think
I
anybody
mean,
has gotten it reneged that quickly.
I mean, shit. Yeah, I mean, it was somebody else that got the key to the city, and then they got fucked up or got jammed up. I can't remember their name.
I think he's the
I mean,
fastest though, because he only
Yeah,
had it for
yeah.
like a day and
You
lost
go
it.
correct. Well, you had a
Yeah.
couple days.
Okay,
You had a couple days.
48 hours. You know what I'm saying? It was like a
You know what
murder.
I'm saying? He might have broke 72.
Okay.
Or is this like a conversation of like, okay, right, what does this mean for the culture? Do we feel bad for Lil Durk? How are we
I
feeling
think
about
so.
it?
Really?
I don't feel. I think
For
that's.
executing another human being.
I
Or
think that's
what
the
am
conversation. But what I'm saying is
Oh,
that
okay.
I don't feel bad for him.
Oh, okay. My fault.
Like
I'm
I think,
ready to
like
jump.
I think that, and somebody, I remember seeing somebody bring this up on Twitter where like we try to do this song and dance with people where we try to paint them out to be nice guys that just
Yeah,
like
right.
didn't leave the hood and like they kind of do this what you call it. Like, come on, man. Like, this is a guy who very much was engaged in activity that most of us, when you look at it objectively, would think is immoral and bad. So
Okay, thank you, because I feel like we was being a little bit too kiki ha ha about this shit, and I'm like, we talking
yeah,
about
like this
murdering
is
black
this
gotta
is
people.
get
Like,
not
jokes
this
out.
is
I mean,
not
goddamn.
great
Yeah, no,
activity.
Somebody throw a pie.
yeah,
Fuck.
I don't. We've had longer conversations about this kind of stuff, so I'm like, I don't know what's going
You
on.
just want to get straight to the serious shit. Like,
I know.
No,
Shit.
it's I'm,
This nigga said
I'm
somebody
divided.
throw a pie.
Somebody slip on a banana peel. Jeez
I know.
Louise.
fuck.
Somebody squish a watermelon, would you?
But there's a lot of meat to this conversation because like me, I've been saying this and feeling this way. Like there is something wrong with our culture. Like we promote and glorify the wrong shit.
That's facts.
You know what I'm saying? But like you got these execs that push these things purposely onto our communities and therefore the larger community, the global community.
Mm.
And it's not promoting nothing positive. It's not promoting no progress. Like, yes, people who did not have anything can make something and still partake in
small select.
capitalism
Yeah.
and gain their way into that top 1%, that top 0.05%, yes, but like, there is an underlying inherent evil ass problem that we have in our community where we promote killing, gang banging, violence unto ourselves and unto our brothers, and these niggas is still active in the streets. And I'm not pushing no hate on the dirt necessarily, but it's a fact, and it's some shit that people gotta say, and we actually gotta reconcile in like a public forum. Like we really gotta have these conversations. And why is the music so turned into violence? Like why are we so turned into violence? Like we kill 20 niggas before we go to work listening to the music they would listen to.
Oh man, that's
Or like we
difficult
do so much drugs, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's not. These are.
That's a difficult one because
it's a vibe. It's a vibe. But
yeah, because it's a vibe, and I wonder because I like listening to that kind of music, and I'm like,
me too.
Where do I? Because to me, I'm like, everybody listens to that kind of music, and I think there's a difference between being like, this is genre content, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of rock music that's about satanic sacrifice and shit like that, and nobody's looking at that music and going, and I'm not saying therefore this is admissible. I'm not making one of those arguments of like, oh, Kurt, because I know that argument gets brought up of like, oh, well, white people do crazy shit. I do still think that there's something in the culture that needs addressing, but I just wonder if it's about changing the music or if it's about changing the relationship to music to create a stronger divide between fiction and glorification. You know what I mean?
One thing about music is the music goes where the people go. Period. Like if the people not feeling it, they're not fucking with it, if it's not marketable, if it's not profitable, that music is not going to go anywhere. So at the end of the day, that's what the people is feeling. Is like, my question is, why are we feeling that way? And that's why I rest my case for now. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is, I would be weary of extrapolating too much from that kind of stuff in terms of what people are listening to and how that impacts culture. And we've had this conversation before, but there's a lot of things that people would assume have this negative impact that there is some body of research that it doesn't really impact people as much as people think. Like people are able to draw the distinction between the fiction of what this is and their everyday lives. Video game studies are pretty prevalent, for example, right? So the general ethos of people is that like, oh, these violent video games are causing people to do this, and then there's actually a pretty substantial body of work that says that like people are pretty easily able to draw the distinction between a violent video game and this based on like fMRI study and all that kind of stuff. So
I think that doesn't paint a full picture of how it impacts.
I don't think we fully understand that, but I'm just saying that there's a body of research that says something other than that. I'm not saying that body of research is conclusive or inconclusive. I'm just saying that like when we're drawing those kind of things, there are certain studies that say that this doesn't
have some limited information
that we do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, that's all I'm saying by pointing that out.
So and that was spawned via Grand Theft Auto. Like when that game
literally, actually, yes, 100%. Grand Theft Auto was the impetus for the start of yes. So all of that Mortal Kombat and Grand Theft Auto was the impetus behind actually creating what I'm referencing as that body of research. So I do feel that there's a lot of stuff that people wrap into it without really fully understanding what the impacts are. So because we don't fully understand what the impacts are, I'm a bit reluctant to say that there's something specifically wrong with the culture. And that's why like I really resonate with what Eddie was saying in terms of not making this a cultural specific thing, because I don't think it's a cultural specific thing in terms of like black people or even going wider in terms of the consumers of that type of music, drill scene and all that kind of stuff, in terms of how they consume music and media and all that kind of stuff. Because I think that a lot of people are actually able to differentiate between what's fact and fiction and what's entertainment and what's not.
That wasn't really what I was saying, just to clarify.
I don't think that's what you were saying. I just think that to draw the connection between what I'm saying and what you were saying that as I understand it, at least, and please correct me if I'm wrong,
I'm getting ready,
is that because music does impact people to a certain extent, there are certain music genres that are not hip hop, that are not rap, that are not drill, et cetera, that do have those kind of things. And then all of that deserves to be looked at in a way that's critical to determine how it impacts culture and
country
all those kind
music,
of things.
domestic abuse.
Sure. My take on that perspective is that I don't like the fact that a lot of times when we have those conversations that we specifically highlight rap and say that rap is impacting the black people and black people are doing this based on the rap, so that black people need to stop listening to the rap and all that kind of. I don't think that the research in any way definitively says that in one way or another. So I think that we need to be careful about how we phrase those kind of conversations, because a lot of times those are used in ways that specifically highlight black people and black music as like the bad guy, when I don't think that black people or black music are specifically the bad guys in those particular contexts.
Right.
That sounds very good, but there's a couple of issues there. So
agreed.
Yeah.
So
but I'll go through what mine are, which is one. Okay, so I think the biggest problem here when we have these conversations is this, like, we're trying to talk for like a white audience, and we don't want to say anything that comes across as like admonishing bits of black culture, because admonishing bits of black culture is a thing that's used to dehumanize us by white people and by conservatives. So there's a fear to acknowledge any kind of like, hey, there might be a thing that needs to be addressed in the culture, because they constantly use that to say that we're more criminal, or we need to be locked away, or our culture is wrong or deviant. The Ben Shapiro's and the Jordan Petersons of the world are very guilty of this kind of thing. So I understand why we have that impulse, but we have to be able to have country club conversations where we're going, all right, everybody in the room is black. We can observe there's a fucking phenomenon. It's almost kind of irrelevant whether or not other cultures are also doing it. It's just like, yo, our musicians are putting out hits to murder other people.
To murder our people.
To murder our own black people. That's an issue.
To kill ourselves.
And you don't need research or studies to understand that is a problem and that is happening. And I think that one of the limitations of referencing certain studies, especially when they're limited, is you have to take into account, okay, which side of this issue do we want to err on? If violence is a thing that we are observing, I think that we need to be very careful trying to suss out and figure out what exactly the cause of it, and figure out whether or not this thing is causing this thing or that thing, when all of the evidence really isn't saying we definitely know that music makes no impact.
No. So like,
I want to speak after you, Alvin.
Yeah, 100%. So one, I think that if you're having those kind of conversations, that's, as I understand what you're saying, I think that's tantamount to respectability, and I think most people think that respectability
No.
is effectively a response to black people trying to be as white as fucking possible.
Which element of what I'm saying are you saying is in line with that? Just so I know what to
So
respond to.
like when you're talking about speaking to a white audience, but trying to transition from speaking to a white audience and having like what is tantamount to a black country club conversation, I think those black country club conversations are innately respectability, and I think respectability is innately about speaking to a white audience.
I don't know how we made that. I don't know how we made that jump. That doesn't.
That's fair. That's fair. So I don't want to say that what I'm saying is 100% like correlation, but what I'm saying is that I view that as such. You're free to disagree, and I think that your disagreement is fair. So I just want to get that.
I think that, I mean, and I would even go further as saying I don't think that, because that if I'm understanding what you're saying, and I think maybe I do, is kind of like a disagreement is irrelevant. I'm just talking about what I mean by it. And I'm the authority on that.
Which is fair.
An association is kind of irrelevant here. What I mean when I'm talking about a country club conversation is black people talking to other black people about what black people want to do for and to and with black people. That's what I'm.
And when I say that, I think that a lot of times what people are doing is they are not looking at how you would like look at a study, right? So when you're looking at a study from that perspective, you're looking at some comparison point, right? So when people look at a comparison point, they are literally saying that for some reason, again, we can argue on what that reason is.
Okay, so like we've agreed that there's an effect happening.
Yeah, but you're not going to agree with what I'm saying.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. Yeah,
agree, but you're not going to agree with what I'm saying. So for some reason, there's this black music that is impacting black people, but then there's this white music that has similar themes that doesn't impact white people the way it is, and I think that's where I have the issue, right? So black music can say like XYZ, murder, and then black people need to be like, oh well, we need to stop doing all this kind of thing, and then hardcore death metal can do this kind of thing, and we don't draw that same parallel with white people. That's where I have the issue.
I think
there's a couple of wrong things about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, because
I don't think there are. I think that we're literally. I think we're literally saying that like the music is impacting black people this way because we're saying this, and I think we're saying whether or not it's implied or it's in or it's explicitly stated that when white people have this same,
I think you made
they're
your
not
point.
doing this.
I think you made your point. We're just now
fair enough. But I had another thing. And I also think that just specifically looking at that.
So if y'all want more content like this where we get fucking heated, where we talk deep into stuff, and you all want to be able to engage directly with us about these conversations, Discord and our community is where to do that. So you can get access to our community channels via either Patreon, YouTube, or Spotify. We offer membership through all three of those. Join any of them, and you'll get bonus content. You'll get access to all of our previously archived episodes, and you'll get access to have conversations with us directly through our Twitter memberships, which we're building up now, and our Discord channel where we have these conversations in long form with our listeners. That's that. Check it out if you're interested and want to continue the conversation after you've heard us fucking talk our shit. Now back to the show.
All of that is wrapped into this idea that white is somehow the benchmark for what is right in terms of how media is portrayed, how media is consumed, even, right? Like nobody draws those same conclusions based on those things. Nobody does that. It's specifically about like how the black community like responds to those things, and I think that in and of itself is an argument of white is right. But
please reply, because I'm about to explode. So
yeah.
So I mean, like, bro, like those are two totally separate issues. It's not for one, like this conversation that we're having, or the way in which we stumbled upon it, is not that it's not like such a black and white between like, oh, how black people perceive music or like make music, and then versus like white people. But one, and if we even want to get into it, like I'll even be straight up, like our most popular music has delved into such a negative space where there's not much balance of like it's mostly tricking, hoeing, bitches, killing, drugs, doing drugs, being a drug addict. It's a lot of destructive connotations. And dog, dead ass, like me and you are not that far apart in age. So we grew up around the same era. And I know like you've seen the difference between like the Snap era, the G Unit gangster era, when like it went to fun, then it went to hard niggas, and then therefore like that influenced how we acted, how we behaved. Like that's the thing that we're talking about is like the music influences people. And if you want to talk, and none of us are saying that white people are not influenced by their negative ass music, because they are. What the fuck you think these fucking mass shooters coming from?
Every school shooter we talk about, goddamn, come on.
From, like, they are also influenced by bullshit. But with this, in terms of like the country club argument, and where I'm coming from or having this conversation is like black people amongst black people, there's a issue like there, and this is what FD was saying in the with the potty mouth shit on some separate shit, but like there's not enough balance. Like, I'm all for the ratchet shit. I'm all for pimp shit. I'm all for gangster shit. I'm all for whole ass pussy music sometimes. I fuck with Glorilla. If it's a bop, it's a bop. But I also listen to other things. But it's the mainstream music is so oversaturated with bullshit that is not feeding anybody's souls, and that's not influencing us to do better or to uplift people.
But I think that. But I think that in and of itself is indicative of what I'm saying. It's like people focus in on that kind of stuff as a respectability argument, because the most popular, like the most popular rap artist of 2024 is fucking Kendrick Lamar.
One artist does not make up an entire musical genre.
Okay. The second most popular artist.
That's like saying racism doesn't exist because Barack Obama was president.
No. The second most popular artist. The second most popular artist. No, that's not the point, right? Because what we're talking about is balance, right? So if we're talking about balance in terms of what people listen to, right? That is indicative of balance, right? So like you have Future, who's probably like the third or fourth, depending on what you look at from a stream perspective. And then you have in the top three, you would have Kendrick Lamar and you would have J. Cole. These are not particular artists that would have a lot of the themes that you would talk about. Some of them, obviously, right? Because I mean, Cole made stick. Kendrick Lamar, comes from a gang affiliated
they have the imagery in their music as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But right, but what I'm saying is like that's indicative of the balance of which you speak. So I'm not saying that what you're it 100% is. It 100% is. It 100% is.
But bro, because it's like when we talk about patriarchal shit, you can have the nicest ones. There is a through line of masculinity as violence throughout all the artists that you even referenced as being these like they also have which is part of the culture.
Which I agree with. But again, my initial argument was that a lot of the hallmarks of highlighting how that specifically is somehow impacting the Black experience specifically in a way that is bad in regards to this country club Black experience conversation is rooted in respectability, and it's not rooted in any sort of study or anything that's conclusive in terms of that. So, and again, I don't disagree. I don't. But my whole thing is like neither do either of you, right?
So what we're doing
that's why I'm trying to,
because sometimes
I'm trying to be very cognizant of the fact that like I don't think you guys are wrong. I don't think that what you're saying is completely out base. I 100% disagree. But what I'm saying is that what you are positing as something that is innately negative, specifically to Black culture, there is not evidence to say that is. But I feel like it is when you're having those conversations about specifically like let's talk about Black culture in a country club situation. I feel like that's specifically talking about Black culture
because we're Black.
Yes, exactly. That's my point, right?
So we're talking about Black culture, of course. That's my point. It's specific, not unique.
Yes, that's my point. But that's my point. Yes, that is specific.
Ask a simple question. May I just ask a simple question? Do you think our mainstream music is positive and actually uplifting and helping us?
I don't think that positive uplifting music is particularly important. Like I don't think that every song has to be fucking Nas I Know I Can in order to be like good
I don't
like
even
art
like
that
those songs, but like it's just
I,
songs
I
with
agree, but like I don't
like the messaging behind these music.
I don't think the messaging has to be quote unquote positive and uplifting in order to be music that moves the culture
Okay,
forward in a positive way. Tupac did not make a lot of positive music, and I think Tupac's impact
Tupac
on the community
died.
was
He
great.
was murdered. What are we talking about? What are we talking about?
What are we talking about? If we're
Okay,
talking about the impact of his music, the impact of his music was positive, despite
And
the
that
fact that he
killed his
didn't.
ass.
was his
That was
death?
definitely part of him.
Yeah, like there are a lot of people who died. Like MLK died. Are we saying that his legacy was like not positive because he
Are we
fucking
saying
died?
that white
That's
supremacy is a violent problem that kills people? Yes, that's exactly what the point
again.
would be
Those
that
are
we're
two.
making.
Those are two different things. We're talking about the impact of
Because you
what they
compare
left.
Malcolm, Martin Luther King to fucking Tupac. So
No. I only brought that up because you said that Tupac's music couldn't be positive because he died. That's the only reason why I brought that up. I'm trying.
wait, so
I'm
are
trying
you
to.
saying the CIA killed him, or you who we talk?
Again,
what
none
are we saying,
of
sorry?
that, none of that makes sense in regards to this. Again,
Where
just because somebody and I want to let Josh get back to his point, but just because somebody died, that doesn't mean that their art or their medium that they chose
no,
like
it's,
do
it's
stuff
an
wasn't
indication
positive.
that his music
No, it's not.
and the music that
No,
he
it's
was making
not.
towards the end of his career is. Let me finish the point before you disagree with the thing, because I know you disagree. That's fine, but it's not
Yeah.
really a point by itself. Tupac's music and the things that he was saying in that music were part of a culture that he was participating in the end of his life that directly led into his death. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, like those are two completely different things in terms of again, what we're talking about is not what we're talking about in terms of this specific point. Was in response to saying like, is the music that we're listening to today positive or uplifting? My point in regards to that is that you don't have to have quasi or even like what most people would consider positive or uplifting music in order to move the culture forward. In terms of that, there are lots of things that are not positive or uplifting that are positive impacts in terms of the culture. For example, let's take rap out of it, right? I wouldn't consider Bon Iver's music to be positive. The music is very fucking sad and fucking depressing, and I think that has a positive impact on art and how we view the culture. For example,
King Cruel, I can say the same thing about King Cruel.
That's my point. I agree.
King Cruel, but his music is so sad and depressing. But I have to know that. Look, I've been listening to this shit for too long enough because it is influencing me negatively. I feel more depressed.
But would you say? Let me ask you this question, Josh. Would you say that King Cruel's music like is innately like negative, and like we need to have a conversation about King Cruel's music and how we need to talk about how like we shouldn't do this or whatever for the you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that.
No, okay,
You
so
I think
not too much on King Cruel now, baby, because
no,
that's you know what I'm saying.
I'm just saying. I think that you're shit. Sorry, Josh. If you yeah.
I was just okay. So to answer the Alvin's question, I might have that conversation on an individual level because I'm like, hey, as a person who loves this music, because this is just the type of shit I be listening to. I like moody, broody music sometimes, and it fits my aesthetic, it fits my vibe, and it fits how I might be feeling. But if I get into it too much, I know I can just get myself into a deeper hole that is not good for myself. Now, that's why I say like I would have a conversation on an individual level, maybe with somebody else that might like that type of music, or like really might fuck with King Cruel, and they might be going through mental health issues. I might say, hey, I know King Cruel's music is great, but this might not be the thing you need to listen to right now.
Got you. Now, let me take an extension, right? And this is for both of you. Now, with everything that you said, are you going to have a alternative music country club meeting about how King Cruel's music is bad for the culture and how this shouldn't do that and how we should talk about how we shouldn't be doing this or that or what you call it? Like based on the fact that
my answer is yes, but I'll expand it to make it make sense because I think that you're asking the wrong question. But if Josh wants to address it,
no, go ahead.
So the thing is, if we were going, hey, there is a set of music as well as a culture attached to it, because music is one component of a culture that is causing eating disorders, self-harm, suicidal ideation within a group, white teens or whatever, that does get talked about. And if I were a parent whose teen was affected by that, yes, I would be having that. So
you're having a global conversation about something that like is not a global situation. I'm saying that for King Cruel specifically, based on the context of how we discuss King Cruel's conversation,
which is why I say it's the wrong question, because it's you're
which is fair. But my whole thing is like, if you look at it from the conversation of like
culture versus singular artist,
but like if I'm looking at it from the thing, I also make the argument that I don't think that the culture is as unbalanced as I think that you are positing, right? I think they're definitely,
if we want to switch points, but that point, yes, I don't think
that's a switch of a point. I think that's a context of the point that I'm making. So I think that there are a lot of artists, like if you look at it from the context of a King Cruel, like a lot of people are willing to like not put those in the same box when we've all like, I think,
that's
come to the agreement that those kind of things. I think it's not. I think that we have these conversations.
I don't have any obligation to defend a point I'm not making.
I think that's fair. You're not defending the point. I'm just saying that I think that I Alvin Borum think that nobody's having these conversations about King Cruel. They're having these conversations about King Von.
Of that useless. Like I'd like to us have a conversation. Like I'd like to talk to you, about the things I
think we are. I think we just disagree. I think that's one of the things.
Yeah, then let's do that. Let's disagree.
Yeah, like I think we're disagreeing, and I think that we're disagreeing by me telling you what I think, and you're telling me what you think. I'm trying to very clearly lay out that I understand that you two disagree, that I understand that I have my feelings and you have your feelings, and I'm trying to very much not do a thing where I'm trying to stamp all over your kind of situation.
It's not about the stamping. It's that what it looks like is talking past one another by making and falling to addressing points that aren't being made in this conversation. So we disagree, and let's talk about what we disagree about. I think that points that the larger culture is making.
I think all of us are addressing each other's points. I think that we just disagree.
Like, not in that moment. I'm saying in that moment, I don't think that's what's
which happening. Is fair, which is why I only got to stop for 10 seconds before we had that conversation. Like, for example, for me personally, again, me, Alvin Borum, I don't think that you are not addressing my points. I don't think that Josh is not addressing my points. I think that we disagree. I think that what I'm trying to do is express my points so that we can continue the conversation where we disagree, because I think it's a very interesting conversation. I'm having a good time having this conversation. I would like to continue this conversation.
Nigga put on the speaker.
Let's not do this thing where we're trying to do this thing where like I feel belittled and like you feel some type of way, because I'm not there. I'm not there because I think this is a good conversation. I just think we disagree. Let's continue to disagree.
And you don't feel belittled, is correct?
I feel belittled. I feel belittled. I feel belittled. Because what I'm trying to do is just talk through situations, and I think we disagree. I'm trying to frame my conversation and how I'm discussing things to not do that. I'm trying not to belittle you, so let's not do that.
I guess the thing is, if in tone or the way that I'm expressing a point, or if I'm like raising my voice, then I do apologize for that, and I'll try better there. The thing is that I think that when I'm making a point about like a meta point about the structure of the conversation, that gets taken as a point of like, oh, Eddie just doesn't like that we're disagreeing and he wants to kind of box me into, and that's not what I think I'm doing. What I think I'm doing is going, I consistently feel like you're not addressing the points that I'm making, not just in the 10-second point, but I consistently feel this. Yeah.
Which I get. And what I'm saying is like, I disagree with that. I feel like I'm addressing your points. I feel like honestly and truthfully, I feel like you're addressing my points. I think I don't feel like you're not addressing my points. So what I want to do is not have this conversation about like, you're not doing this kind of thing or that kind of thing in a belittling fashion, because that's what it feels like from my perspective. And I'm trying very hard to not do that on my end. So what I'm requesting is that you don't do it on your end, because what I feel like is
things specifically that I'm doing that are feeling, belittling when I'm being like, I don't think you're addressing my
for example, I think that this is a multifaceted conversation where like all of these things build on each other, right? So when I reference back to something that you said or that I said or that Josh said, I don't think that that's not addressing the point. I think that all of these points are intertwined and connected. So therefore, if I reference something back and I use that as a piece of an argument that I'm doing, that's called conversation, and that's how like we build upon those kind of things from my perspective. So again, if you disagree, like I'm open to you disagreeing, but like what I do take offense to is like me using prior stuff in this conversation as a part of this conversation. because that's what I feel like
no,
I'm
it's
doing.
fair to use other stuff. I guess it's difficult to, and because I can't always see where you're headed with a point, so it's hard to kind of distinguish between the building blocks of a larger point and what feels like often like a branching, which I sometimes see these in like Jubilee videos where it's like a point will be made and then using one word we branch the fuck off into something else. And I'm not saying that you're necessarily doing that. Sometimes I suspect that's the case, but I'll try better there to make sure that I'm not doing that. But I do genuinely feel like sometimes we're branching off into something rather than building a point. But
Yeah, and like
obviously
my
I
whole
can
thing,
only ever assume that you're operating from good faith. So
yeah, and my perspective from that perspective is that branching off is again how conversations evolved. I would say that you've branched off on certain things, and I didn't think that was
sometimes it's bad.
off board.
Sometimes,
Yeah, but I don't.
it's
I think
bad.
that's just conversation. For example, the
It's not
conversation
constructive always.
about
Myself
Tupac
included.
dying. Tupac dying was a branch, and I don't think that was an unfair branch. I think that was something that was pertinent to the conversation. So, like, let's continue the conversation.
The thing that I'm distinguishing, and we can move on from this because I think maybe we're spending too
Please.
much time, and just for the audience, spending too much time on meta. But there's a difference between branching because you're building a point further and hopscotching away from dialing into what the disagreement on a premise is. It's a thing that happens in debate videos all the time where you go like, do you think the trans women are women? And then somebody goes, well, you know what fetus means in Latin. And then now we're talking about something totally different. And we haven't addressed the key axiom or premise that we disagree on in the initial point. And we never do. So I agree that it's conversation is just not constructive. It's what usually happens in most people's conversations. You never actually come to any conclusions or really actually talk about the core disagreements. You fly the fuck off and you never finish what you were talking about, which is
fair. I just don't think that that's happened at any point here. I think we've all danced around like the same conversation and we just disagree, and we can talk about how we disagree because I think it's interesting. But
okay, let me try and bringing it back home, and unless Josh, you got something super.
I would just really love to get back to the conversation.
Yeah. So what I was gonna ask is because I want to try and see if I can step back a little bit and see if I can get a clearer perspective of what you think, Alvin, because I think me and Josh are kind of on the same page. Do you think, for whatever cause it may be, that there is any issue within the Black culture that could be that can be framed as an issue of culture with regard to and that is uniquely within Black culture with regard to violence, economics, spending, misogyny, whatever you want to pick, anything? Do you think that there is such a thing like that? And if so, can you talk about what its texture is?
I don't think that there's anything in the realm of anything that you listed that is uniquely to Black culture. And I definitely don't think that anything that you named is uniquely to Black culture based on Black music and how that's portrayed. No.
Okay.
I think that everything that people
I think that's a good core nailing down. Yeah.
I think that everything that people name from that perspective is present in other cultures, and I think that everything that people name from that perspective is present in the media primarily consumed by other cultures. But I think that for some reason, and I think that it's rooted in respectability politics, whether it's innately or whether it's something that is explicitly done, like, from that perspective, they don't view it as part of other cultures, but they view it as a part of like Black culture, again, based on rooted in that respectability context. Again, whether or not it's, in this country club situation or whether or not it's widely in public.
Okay. That's interesting. And I think that's a good clarification of where you're coming from. I think that informs a lot more of this convo. That's good.
Yeah. I just want to say like one thing too, in terms of this conversation. And I don't think, and first I'll speak for myself. I'm not having this conversation from the standpoint that music in and of itself is the problem or like is the driving force in violence within our culture. The reason why rappers die, the reason why Young Durk is, hemmed up, whatever. But it's more of a thing of and that I feel strongly about, like there's a very strong influence, a negative one at that, in the culture. And that's being perpetuated through our music. It's a bop. It's a fun fucking time.
I completely agree.
It's a fun time, but it's like And I don't know, and I'm not necessarily saying like, oh, niggas got to go out and start like skipping in the fields and flowers and start rapping about that, because shit, I probably won't even listen to it. I don't fucking know. I don't know what that would sound like.
I
But
mean,
it's just
yeah,
still like
everything ain't
there's
got to
a
be positive. It can be neutral too. Like,
yeah, but it's exactly, or like it's just a thing of like maybe like a different framing or of some things, but like just if all else fails, talk about money, fucking bitches, doing bitches dirty, women doing niggas dirty, because hell, we done been doing women niggas been doing women dirty for so long. So now the women are getting they get back in terms of the music and like making uplifting music for themselves in the same vein that was still a little like that guys have been doing, or and just killing niggas metaphorically, literally telling their story through the streets. And but so it's just like, what are we listening to? And if you predominantly like intake all of that shit, like absolutely, I listen to rap music a lot, but I also listen to like I listen to other genres. I like fucking like just peaceful, like meditative, or just alternative, like I like other things that clears my mind and gives me like peace of mind or puts me in a meditative state when I'm like cooking or whatever. But if you're ingesting all of that all the time and you're also participating in life from an unfavorable stance of your birth, where you was born into poverty, you don't know no other way to make it up out of that. Like, and all you see around you is the same shit that's being reflected in the music you hearing. So that's just like another like wall that's being put up in front of you. Like the only way you can make it out of this shit is by selling drugs, being a pimp, taking advantage of women, getting money, getting rich, and maybe you'll be able to leave the hood, but the hood gonna follow you, i.e. Vaughn. You know what I'm saying? Some shit you still, still got your hands in bullshit when you are rich now. Or Vaughn. And mind you, that nigga was a literal fucking demon, dead ass. So, but it's still like there's definitely a conversation that should be had there. Like, it's not like a thing of, oh, this is just respectability politics. Like, for me, like, no, like, a country club conversation is like, we got to be real with ourselves. It's like, hey, there's not much balance going on here at the very least. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there ain't no De La Souls. Like, there ain't no little brothers. Like, there are, but it's not balanced.
And I think to Alvin's point, I'll agree that I don't think that everything has to be that. And I think that most people, most of the time, you know what I'm saying? Most black people are, we got our degree, we work in jobs, you know what I'm saying? All that kind of stuff, listening to this sort of music. Most people can distinguish those things. But I think that you have to be very detached from lived reality and experience and media literacy to not think that media has an impact on the way that we process thoughts and cultures and what should or should not happen. I mean, media has always done that, and all media does it. Now, I do think that there is definitely issues of white supremacy and anti-black rhetoric that make it difficult to parse out what is just us talking about media impact versus us trying to vilify black folks. And I do think that makes it very difficult, and we devolve into these conversations about, sort of what about white music. And I would like to talk more about this media, like what is the impact of media on people thing. But I guess to me, the core discussion now is like, it doesn't even matter of getting to, does media have an impact? Because we're not even agreeing on whether or not there is even an issue at all. If murder, violence, misogyny even are at any level that is of specific concern among black people at all, before we even get into whether or not media has an impact on the way that people think and behave and process their reality, which I would just say it's obvious that that's the case.
Media 1,000,000% has an impact. I feel like, media 1,000,000% does have an influence. I mean, like, it's 1,000,000% does have an influence on how we think, our subjectiveness, and how we portray things, or the way that things are portrayed to us has an effect on how we view the world. 1,000,000%.
That's
like,
why
I mean, like,
media analysis, women's studies, African American studies.
It's documented. It's like, bro, like, my God, I don't know if you niggas have ever seen. I haven't seen the shit either, but I was just made aware of this, and I would like to talk about this shit at some other day. But 1940s Batman, racist and xenophobic than a motherfucker.
Oh, the Adam West one?
Maybe.
It's live action?
Yes, black and white, and this nigga was
black and white.
fuck at Japanese niggas, bro. Internment camps. I ain't scared of no slink. I'm talking about all
Oh
sorts of
Jesus!
stuff.
All type of
No, man,
rhyming
no,
alliteration racism.
bro.
That's They was in
Like,
their bag with that shit.
but like that's how we're programmed though. Like, bro, like in the 1970s, it was a TikTok. The funny thing about it, like when I saw this thing, when I was made aware of it, somebody in the comments was like, "Yo, my grandmama got mad at my mama because she bought it wasn't a Honda, a Hyundai or some shit like that."
A Hyundai, yeah, that's the Japanese.
Like,
Oh, right, because it was Japanese.
he
Yeah.
was mad at her for buying a car just
Mm.
because of the brand. And like you got, and when you, and it's not like it's that difficult to connect dots between certain things. You don't have to put on the whole 10-4 hat, but understand that things are connected, and our minds works in ways that we might not realize, and how we're connecting things
Of course.
in our
Yeah.
perception of what we think. So it's
Media-
not a stretch to say that, hey, maybe the music is a little too negative right now.
So my take on that is the way this conversation started was that there was something wrong with the culture. I do know, and I tried to do this before, again, we branched. I understand what Eddie's saying in terms of like, well, maybe we need to have a conversation about every specific culture. That's not how I interpreted that, especially in light of the Black Country Club kind of conversation, because a Black Country Club implies that there's something specifically wrong from my perspective with Black culture. I don't think that there is something specifically wrong with Black culture in terms of how these things are done. If we want to make a larger conversation about media messages leading to misogyny, media messages
Exactly.
leading to sexism, like
Racism.
I think that's fine. What I'm saying is that I don't think that rap music is some specific demon that needs to be tamed, especially in response to the other quote unquote demons that exist in cultures that exist outside of Blackness and the Black diaspora that exist and like influence these things, especially even, you know, in the context of like, we need to specifically highlight this specifically in the context of Black people, specifically in Black spaces, as some sort of demon. I that's what I disagree with. I don't think that media is something that's divorced from impact to individual or even structural contexts, but I do think that media as a whole has these sort of impacts. I just don't think that there's this special, specific, isolated cultural impact that does not exist outside of the realm of overall structural impact of media as a whole.
I know,
What
Eddie. I
is-
know. I just want to say this real quick, but I just want to say this real quick. I'm gonna
And I know y'all disagree.
Baby,
I know y'all disagree.
I'm gonna leave
And I
it
think
over
y'all
for
are
you,
fine
baby.
Of course,
disagree.
that's what everybody
Yeah.
knows. Everybody disagrees.
I'm gonna leave it though over for you,
Go ahead,
baby. I
Josh,
just
yeah.
want to say
Okay,
this real
thank you.
quick, like, because like my thing was my proposition or my thinking is it's not necessarily to just call out rap music as just some sort of evil demon, whatever. Because again, I partake in it. I was built by it, raised by it, molded by it.
By the time he
all
heard
right?
rock music, it was only blinding.
I'm like, right, shit. I am of the culture, by the culture. 8 Ball and MJG in the crib, pimp shit when I am little, harsh shit towards women. Okay, learning this shit word for word, bar for bar. I'm not saying that this is only a thing that we need to focus on. I'm just saying, like, okay, instead of it's not necessarily a thing of, for one, in the context of this thing, it's like a country club conversation amongst Black people. This is something that, hey, we might need to look at, but it's not to say that we only need to look at white, Black, this like rap, hip hop, whatever, and exclude like any other thing. Why can't we have the conversation amongst ourselves, and then also open up a general conversation of, there's a lot of negative imagery and messaging in music, but you know, why can't we also have that conversation as well, instead of just being like, oh, it ain't just Black music, fuck it all, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can
Yeah,
still
which is what it feels
expand the
like.
conversation.
Okay, so if I can
go
go
ahead.
real quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
I will say that. I'll just make a real quick address to your point, Josh, and then I'll go to what Alvin was saying. So I, of course, agree with that. I think that, and I think that maybe we just got bogged down in different definitions of what country club could mean. So I'll just do away with the word so that we're not imagining what I mean by it, and I'll just say what I'm talking about. If we're talking about, hey, should we address something in Black culture? What I'm talking about is we're not responsible for white school shooters. We don't raise them. We don't raise little white like anorexic girls who like cut themselves. Those aren't in our households. So those cultures should 100% talk. Well, yeah, you get what I'm saying, but
I
100%,
no
so,
disrespect to anybody. It's a very serious thing, but yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying it's a disrespect. Those are both very serious things. So, should the way that media portrayals of body image and the way that it impacts women's bodies and results in psychological issues that cause death and malnourishment, should that be addressed as a cultural thing that's directly related to media? Yes. So that's the thing that I would say to just bolster Josh's point, and then maybe tying it to addressing Alvin's point. I guess then my question is, if we all are in agreement that media can impact negative views of a group. So we talked about misogyny, we talked about, queer phobia, maybe fat phobia, because we're not just talking about music, we're talking about films, books, everything. When you say that there's not a unique demon in rap or Black culture, I think that all three of us would agree with that. I guess the question is, if media has an impact on people's views, are you saying that rap is immune to that being the case? Because like when we talked about video games, for instance, I would say that the best that you have is that it's inconclusive, the impacts that video games have to people. I don't think that we can draw a conclusion that it doesn't impact the way that they view the world. So just to repeat my question, if media does impact the way people view and operate in the world, assuming that we agree on that, is rap music an exception to that, or am I just not connecting the dots properly in your view?
I think that when you look at the circumstances in terms of the fact that this is inconclusive, I think that you had, and I tried to get to this, and I will acknowledge that I butchered it. When you look at cross-sectional analysis in terms of culture to culture, right? Like the primary like consumers of rap music are white people.
100%. Yeah.
So when you're looking at those kind of things, my question in response, and I do realize that I'm being not a good conversationalist in answering the question with the question, is that like nobody not nobody. How am I going to phrase this? Do you feel like rap music impacts the predominantly white audience the same way that it impacts the Black audience? If the answer is yes, then I think that kind of like is more in line with you two's argument. But I feel like a lot of the times, not necessarily you, because I don't think either of you have said this, but I feel like a lot of the times, a lot of people are saying that rap music has this particularly poignantly bad impact on Black people. But the predominant like audience of that situation is young white males. So I think as a scientist that like when you're looking at those kind of things, and obviously there's confounding at play here, but if you're looking at it cross section to cross section, if it impacts one, if one was to say that it doesn't impact one group one way, but it impacts one group the other way, I think that bolsters my argument.
Yeah, I don't think so. So I'll try and answer the question, because I think what I will answer will be the obvious answer. No, no, I don't think that they do impact the same. And I think that what I would say is what you're asking is, do we think that pieces of media impact people differently based on to what extent they relate to it and see themselves in it? And I would say the answer to that is obviously yes. And so I think when it comes back to confounding things, it's incomplete science when we look at something and go, oh, well, this group and this group we assume that they should be impacted the same by it. Yeah. But that of course isn't the case. When we look at anything to do with gender, culture, anything, we understand that different groups will be impacted by the same thing differently, because white people cannot participate in Black culture the way that Black people can, period.
Yeah. So, and that is ultimately what I'm saying, right? Because if you're saying that this particular media situation is based on the context, and I think that everything that we're talking about from that perspective is due to the context of how Black people live and not the media in and of itself. Because if the media isn't making white people, from your perspective, like do things that from your perspective it's making the Black people do potentially, then I think that the context is more important than the media in and of itself.
I think that's a good clarification that I think both Josh and I have kind of alluded to, if not directly said, which is that it's like saying, well, what kills you, the gunpowder or the bullet or the casing? Each of those things is part of a system. So if you're going to say that, hey, the context of poverty, white supremacy, and a whole host of other issues that bear down on Black people is the huge relevant context, of course. So which is why one of my initial points was like, maybe it's not about music, it's about what is the connection to how we process that music. That's also fair and fine, but I don't think that means that there's not an impact. It doesn't mean that the gunpowder doesn't have a relevant role in this. Like, that's what culture is. Culture is a bunch of different things. Like, for instance, when we talk about like rape culture, if we talk about a scene in Game of Thrones where rape is happening, or we talk about what's that old movie that white boys love, the frat movie, Animal House, and there's like a rape scene in where an unconscious woman, a guy,
16 Candles.
16 Candles is deciding whether or not to rape this unconscious woman. If that existed in a culture where that wasn't a question, then that piece of media's impact is much less relevant. But when those are questions that young men are actually unsure of, then that media does make a massive impact. Both the cultural context and the artifact, the film, the music, whatever, are both relevant and both have an impact. What we're talking about is like regression shit. You know what I mean? There's multiple coefficients in a thing. Yeah,
but also I would say that if you're looking at addressing actual things, then you actually 100% look at distal versus proximal causes. So like ideally, ideally you're looking at as close to the root cause of things as you possibly can. And I also think that listening to a story of like street life is not the same thing as like looking at like a literal person like raping somebody in some form or fashion, or sexually assaulted somebody on media. I think that's a completely different context. But and again, we've disagreed. We've done nothing but disagree for 45 minutes. But I do think that, again, when you're looking at those kind of things, that it's important to look at what's a distal versus proximal cause to the actual root cause of the situation. And I think if you constantly are chopping down at distal causes, that you'll never actually get to what happens. And I think that a lot of times what respectability politics, which I still continue to go back to in this conversation, I think respectability politics keeps Black people chopping down at proximal causes, and I mean at distal causes, and never getting to proximal causes.
Maybe I think that you can just do both. Like, I think that
which
like
is fair. That's fair.
When somebody says like when a woman says like, hey, we shouldn't have these scenes in movies, we don't go, oh no, you gotta dismantle the patriarchy, leave the movie. It's like, no, look, man, like you the way any political movement happens is you attack what you can attack. And I guess maybe part of your argument is that because we're focusing on this, we can't, but I feel like that's not true. There are so many Black people constantly working on all of the massive problems that we have at a policy, at an economic, at a social level. This is one of those. And what we're talking about is let's remove the firing pin. Like, we agree. There's a whole bunch of other shit. The gunpowder is also an issue. We're working on that too.
My argument is that like somebody should be able to tell their story, and we should like be in a situation where telling their story doesn't necessarily be equated with something that leads to 100% like negative consequences for a specific group of the culture. So like, for example, like nobody talks about autobiographical situations that writers talk about as negatively impacting the culture, because they should be able to tell their stories
sometimes.
while we do this.
They should.
I actually think that's fair. Fair.
Bukowski shit is filled with is autobiographical. It's filled with misogynistic shit that a bunch of fucking white boys look up to. Ham on Rye and fucking Post Office. But even from that perspective, and again, I get that it's a sliding scale, but I'm just saying like they're 100% like situations that were in the current context viewed as negative, and even like the fucking negative of Frederick Douglass. You know what I mean? But we're not talking about those, right? Stories in a problematic culture will be problematic. And so I think that we can address those and go like, what things do we want to glorify? And it's okay to address both. And I feel like we just continue to fall into this, well, what about white people argument, instead of going like, well, yeah, maybe multiple things can be wrong.
Which is fair. And if that's the line that people want to draw, like I'm actually okay with that line. I just find that people typically don't draw those lines. Not saying that you didn't or that Josh didn't, but I think that people draw those lines.
Yeah, they 100% do. You're absolutely right, and I think that's because for all of the reasons that you have articulated during this convo. Last word, Josh.
Oh, I guess I'll just tie it up in a bow knot. This conversation is extremely nuanced. I don't think any of the three of us are saying that. Well, me and Eddie are saying that music is the fault of plights, disruption, da da da. Like the sole reason behind whatever's going on in the Black community that we disagree with, or we feel like we need remedies behind. There's a whole ton of other shit, economical things that go on behind the scenes that have gotten us into this position that we are in. Racism, redlining, all a myriad of things that have influenced our music. But it's just like the thing of how the music has evolved and in some cases devolved. There's a conversation in that, but there's a lot of other things, a lot of other factors at play, a lot of other variables. So it's not just that I'm saying or we're saying that it's just the music fault, but this conversation was about the music, i.e. spurned upon Lil Durk, and may you
You have
best
the
of
fate
luck.
you deserve. Yeah.
Best of luck, buddy. Shit.
Yeah.
Best of luck, my nigga. You know what I'm saying?
He ain't getting out.
Gang.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in as always. It's been your boy Eddie. It's been Alvin. It's been Josh. If you see a walk-in oven that don't have a fucking escape hatch on it, you might be seeing a red flag. But at the same time, if you on some respectability politics think that only Black people are impacted by media, it could be you that's waving the red flag. It's been Waving the Red Flag podcast. We'll see y'all next week. Join us on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube in order to join our membership community. If you want to get bonus content, if you want to continue the conversation with us. And of course, cop the card game. It's a red flag for your next dinner party. It always keeps the conversation flowing. We'll see y'all next week. Have a happy Halloween.
I'm a bust it wide open. I'm a bust it wide open, girl. I'm a bust it wide open that you're feeling how I'm feeling that you want some penis tonight, girl. Tell me that you're coming soon.
Yeah. All right. Ending recording.
Happy Halloween.